This is the Real Estate Equation. I'm here with I Am Home Inspections. I'm here with my lovely co-host.
I'm Liz Buchman from the Buchman team at Guild Mortgage.
And we're here with our very special guest, Melissa Quade with TheBuyersAgents.com. A little background, Melissa and I worked together at a wholesale mortgage company 20 years ago.
20 years.
And then we didn't see each other for a long time. And then we were at a brunch with a mutual friend. And then you quickly, almost immediately moved out of LA.
Right.
But so in one of our last videos, we talked about agents not wanting to work with buyers anymore with post-NAR settlement and the new rules, and a lot of agents saying, I don't want to work with buyers anymore. And I said at the time in that video, for every agent who says that, there's going to be another agent who's going to go, good, get out of my way, less competition. And so Melissa started this site, TheBuyersAgents.com, specifically to do exactly as I said, to go get the buyers and represent buyers. So, what inspired you to create this site?
Well, so the news broke on March 15th of this year. And I remember that date very distinctly because it was the exact same day 4 years prior that we all went on lockdown for COVID. So March 15th has this it's the Ides of March, right? It's a very strange, significant day. And so the news broke that the rules were changing drastically as far as how agents were going to be paid. And the main thought behind it was that buyers should be responsible for paying their own agents. For 30 years, it's been, a seller paid item, seller agrees to pay a certain percent or amount of commission to the listing broker. And then the listing broker has agreed to split that in some capacity with the buyer's broker so that everybody has their own representation. It's been a piece of consumer protection that's been in place since the 1990s. And the news broke that there was a settlement involving the National Association of Realtors, and that all of that was going to change. They were bifurcating the commissions. Buyers were responsible for paying for their agents. Sellers are responsible for paying for their agents, which all sounds well and good until you stop and think about the fact that we already have an affordability problem for buyers all around the country. Buyers are consistently having to wait longer and longer and longer to buy their first home. They are not being able to build that generational wealth the way that our generation and prior generations have been able to through real estate. And I just thought, this can work kind of in the same way. If a buyer has just sold a home and they have a hunk of cash that they're sitting on to buy a new home, and then they can set some of that aside for paying their own agent. But who is this hitting the hardest? It's the first-time home buyer who hasn't gotten into the market yet, and they've been scrimping and saving for sometimes years to scrape together enough for a down payment plus closing costs plus reserves to buy their first home. They don't have that extra money to pay their own agent. Or you're talking about, your low income folks who, same thing, their money is very tight for them. They might be on a very limited salary, limited budget. They don't have the money to pay for their own agent. So, and on top of it, we already had this affordability problem. We've just then moved the goalposts even farther for these people to be able to purchase a house. And it really upset me when I thought about it. And I thought everybody deserves their own agent. Everybody needs their own representation in a real estate transaction. And where my heart has always been is with buyers. I do both. I work with listings and I work with buyers, but personally, I get a lot more sense of personal satisfaction from working with buyers. That's my where my passion lies. And so I thought, you know what? Everybody's running towards sellers, running towards listings at this point. And where I'm being called is to continue to help buyers, especially the ones, that really, everybody really needs it, but I want to find a way to help the people who can't afford to pay their own agents. So that's where that came from.
That's awesome. So what do you hope this website is going to accomplish?
So I really wanted people to understand there's so many misconceptions about real estate agents in general and what we do. And they think that we just open doors and do sort of like a Vanna White with the homes and that's it. When in reality, the showing of homes is just the tip of the iceberg of what we do. Where we really earn our pay is after that home is identified. How do we write an offer? How do we figure out what you as the buyer can offer? Where are you falling short versus where can you sweeten the pot a little bit more? How do we craft an offer? And then once we get that offer accepted through negotiations, what happens after that? How do we see you through the escrow? How do we see you through inspections, through appraisal, through timelines, through your lending timelines? And what happens when you hit roadblocks along the way? What happens when the seller isn't cooperating? There's so many things and so many possibilities that could come up in a real estate transaction that we are trained and have the experience to help people through. So I want people to understand why it's necessary to have your own representation. And then I want people to know that there is somebody that they can call to help them help identify what it is that, they're particularly looking for in an agent. What are their pain points that they need somebody to help fill in for them? And then they can call me or set up an appointment to talk to me, and it's like a matchmaker service. It's like an agent matchmaker service meant to be nationwide. Hopefully, we go nationwide eventually. That's the goal, so that people can find the right agent.
Well, you're ready to my next question. You set that up nicely. So, how do you plan on taking this nationwide?
Well, everything is nationwide now, right? I mean, everything is global. Everything is so easy to get out with social media. So we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn. And it's very easy now, especially when you have an ad related to housing, because we can't discriminate based on any particular demographics. The only demographics we can pick and choose are the geographic area that we advertise to. That's it. So we pick a geographic area that we want to advertise to on social media, and we get the word out.
So you're going to be bringing in other agents. I think this is one of your questions.
Yeah. So is it a brokerage? Is it a program? If somebody wants to get involved, how do they? What do they do? Can you go into further detail on that?
It's a network. It's not a brokerage. Personally, I'm with EXP. I believe strongly in the EXP model. We are a nationwide brokerage. Actually, we're a global brokerage, but we'll just say nationwide for purposes of this conversation. I have connections with top agents with EXP all over the country. So that's where it's focused.
All right. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of what. I know my answers, but I'll hear from you. Why do buyers need their own representation as opposed to just going with the listing agent?
I mean, the bottom line is that you wouldn't hire the same attorney as somebody that you're on the other side of a lawsuit with. It's the same concept. Why would you use the same agent to represent two different sides of a transaction with opposing priorities and goals? It doesn't make any sense at all. There's a huge conflict of interest in a single agent representing both sides, or one side having representation and the other side not having representation. That just like the attorney analogy, it's like going to court and representing yourself against a high-powered, highly experienced attorney. It just doesn't make any sense. Puts you at a distinct disadvantage throughout the whole process. There are so many intricacies in a real estate transaction, and they are different. They're different among the 50 states, but even within a state, there are differences. Even from county to county, there can be differences that it's important to know about. Lest you make a big mistake that could end up being very costly. So I personally, I have bought homes in other areas while I've been a real estate agent. I have bought homes in other areas. And although I'm a very, well-experienced real estate agent myself, I hire agents in those areas because I don't know how things are done in those areas. I don't know what things I need to look out for in those particular geographic areas, those neighborhoods, what inspections, what's happening in the neighborhood, what do I need to know about, what are the regulations, what's coming up, all of those things. There's a wealth of knowledge that a local agent brings to the table for a real estate transaction.
Yeah, I agree. So, from your perspective, what do you typically see go wrong when a buyer doesn't have their own representation?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's an infinite number of things that can go wrong. I'll tell you one story that happened actually earlier this year with a client of mine. So this client lived locally. They hired me to list their house and market their house, sell their house. They were buying a house up in Reading, which is a couple hours away from here. They were buying a house privately without agents involved because he was purchasing his longtime friend's father's house who had just passed away. So this was a private deal that he thought he had it on lock. They'd been friends for over 20 years. It was a handshake agreement, nothing in writing, no agents involved. I put their house on the market. They moved up there. The day they got up there, the friend came to them and said, "We decided we're not selling you this house, but we'll rent it to you." And they said, "Well, that's not what we want." They stayed the night there. The next morning, they packed up all their stuff again and they drove back. And they spent probably $30,000 getting their house ready to list, making repairs, making improvements, selling, items. They made improvements to the house up there thinking that they were going to buy it. They put money into the house up there because they believed it was going to be theirs. Moving expenses, they spent thousands and thousands of dollars and came back, didn't get that house. I mean, huge, huge waste of money. So that's one thing that just happened to one of my clients just this year. There's all sorts of things that could happen. Somebody could tell you, if you have an agent working the other side of the deal and you don't know the law and you don't know what is or what isn't possible, they could tell you, "Oh, my seller's going to take your earnest money in cash immediately." It doesn't get applied towards the closing. It just gets passed through. And buyers don't know that that's actually not legal in this state. But it has happened because buyers don't know and they don't have an agent advising them. And then the deal doesn't go through and they've lost that earnest money. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong without a knowledgeable and an expert agent holding your hand.
I agree. But just on our side, I mean, we do a lot of inspections on where there's dual agency, and a lot of time the agents then come to us afterwards and they're like, "Hey, my agent, can you help me out here?" And we're kind of like, "We can help you. We can answer any question you want about the inspection, but we can't negotiate for you. We can't give you advice on should you or should you not buy the house because we're not licensed agents." And so I see a lot of things go wrong, but it was good to see your perspective. And that's a crazy story.
Yeah. No contracts. Like, who picks up and moves without a contract?
You've been friends with somebody, you've been close to somebody for 20 years and you know the whole family. You think that, that seems like a trustworthy arrangement. It does. It seems like a trustworthy arrangement. And I don't think the friend meant to screw him over. I think just in conversations within their family, other people decided that was not the best course of action for that family. And I understand that, but they didn't have a contract to hold them to it. So
let's talk about a very common scenario. A home buyer, they're driving down the street, they see an open house sign, and they're like, "Oh, we're right here. Let's just stop in and look." They walk in, they see the house, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is the house we've been looking for. We want to make an offer." But they're not working with a buyer's agent yet. And the listing agent's sitting there going, "Well, I have the paperwork right here." What should a person do in that instance?
So first of all, I want to be clear because what you're describing is every seller's fantasy. Every seller believes that their house is going to have an open house and somebody unexpected is going to come in, fall in love with their house, and drop everything to buy their house at top dollar. And that just doesn't happen. I always tell people, serious buyers have agents. And so they don't need to go to open houses, for one thing, because they have an agent who will schedule a showing and show them that house privately. Sometimes people walk into an open house and it ends up being the one that they buy, but typically they're already pre-approved and they already have an agent that they're working with. But that said, let me address your question, which is, what if that actually does happen? Somebody's just thinking about, maybe we'll move, but we haven't taken any steps yet to, get our ducks in a row. We haven't gotten pre-approved. We haven't found an agent, and we've walked into this house and we think, oh, this is the one. And that listing agent hands us some paperwork. Don't do it by yourself. Just don't. This is a contract. It's a legal contract. There are a lot of moving parts to it. Some of it may not even apply to your area. For instance, in the California contract, we have some lines about government required government point of sale requirements. Some areas in California have those and some don't. Do you know what they are in your area? Do you have any idea what those could be for the area that you're looking at that house in? There's just so many pieces. If that listing agent fills out any of that contract for you, they're in violation of agency law. So first of all, know that they've already taken advantage of you if they've done any of that. And if it's completely blank, you don't know what you're doing, go find an agent. Go find an agent before you start looking at homes in earnest. Get pre-approved before you start looking at homes in earnest. If you haven't been pre-approved, and Liz can speak to this, right? How do you know that you're looking in the right price range? You might fall in love with a house that's listed at $700,000 and you could find out you're only approved for $450,000. You're looking completely in the wrong price range. And all that leads to is frustration and heartache all around. Get pre-approved and get an agent first before you start looking. And do not fill out a real estate contract by yourself.
Good advice. So with the NAR settlement, have you changed any aspect of your business? I mean, how are you doing?
I always tell people, you know what, I'm doing all right. I'm surviving. Things, the market's been weird for a couple of years. It's definitely slowed down. I get most of my business from past referrals. And that's always been my goal. I'm not looking for that one sale. I'm looking to make raving fans of those people so that they tell all of their friends and family that this is the person you need to work with. So I have a pretty steady referral business that I get personally, and I'm doing okay. I'm doing fine, but there's a lot of people that are not. A lot of people are dropping out, and I think that's good for the industry. When we were in the COVID days, when things were selling like, anybody could stand on a street corner and sell a house. It made it seem like it was easy. It was easy to get started, and it's easy, it's an easy business, and it is, let me tell you, it's far from easy. And it's a 7-day a week, 365-day a year job. And so I feel lucky that, that I'm surviving, and I have a steady stream of referrals that come my way. And, have I changed anything? I've had to change, some things because the rules have changed and the contracts have changed. And so the conversations that we have to have with clients about those have changed. And, sellers want to know, like, well, I don't have to pay a buyer's agent now, do I? And the answer is no, you don't have to. But you also don't have to take a shower, but you might want to. You don't have to pay a buyer's agent, but if you don't, you're kind of cutting out a large part of the buyer pool out there. And as it turns out, even though the rules have changed and the way that the money kind of gets shuffled around, or for who pays what has changed, in reality, it hasn't changed much at all. Most sellers understand the value of paying for that buyer's agent, because that buyer is putting out a huge chunk of change just to buy the house. And it's their money. It's the buyer's money that they're bringing to the table. So let's let them have some of that back to pay their agent.
It's definitely conversations of before and after. There's that line in the sand where you can ask, oh, how many houses have you purchased over the last, 8 or 9, 10 years? Now it's how many homes did you purchase last year? Because it is a different conversation that you're going to have with them now. And the contracts are different. So what they thought they were experts on, they're rookies all over again, meaning, person who's going to purchase a house. So they definitely need buyer's representation more than ever. And I wholeheartedly love working with buyer's agents. It's very difficult to work with somebody who is trying to double end it. But state of California does allow that still to happen. So as crazy as it is.
I get a lot of hate from a lot of agents because I feel very strongly that dual agency should be illegal in all 50 states. It is illegal in 8 states right now, I believe, and I think that's for very good reason. And like I said, a lot of agents hate me for saying this, but I don't think it's ethical. I don't think it should be done. The only person that gets the benefit of dual agency is the agent. And I think that's wrong. We're there to represent our clients' best interests, not our own.
All right. So if a real estate agent is out there and they want to join the buyersagent.com network, how do they join?
They can reach out to me. Right now, I give EXP agents preference. We have an internal referral system and a way for me to research agents' productivity that makes it a little more safe for me and for the client. If somebody reaches out to me, though, and there isn't an EXP agent in that area, then I will go outside the EXP network to search for somebody for them. But they can absolutely reach out to me through the website and, send me their qualifications, and I'll be happy to talk to them and put them on the list.
Okay. And what's the best way to reach you then?
You can go to TheBuyersAgents.com, or you can reach out to me at info@TheBuyersAgents.com as well. Either way is fine. If you are looking for an agent, the best thing to do is go to TheBuyersAgents.com, click on the link at the top that says Get Started. It's going to ask you about 6 questions. Very simple. It takes about 30 seconds to answer all the questions. And then I'll set up a time to talk to you, get to know you. What is it that you're looking for? What's important to you? What are your pain points? I want to know who you are and, what it is that you need and are looking for and are hoping for, so that when I am finding the right agent for you, I know how to assess for that.
All right.
Cool.
Sounds great. Any final thoughts?
Very informative. I think what you've done is very innovative and probably very unique. I haven't heard of anything like it. Obviously, you have Facebook groups and things like that people collaborate nationwide and globally on, but making it very boutique and specific by giving it its own place, I think is very cool.
Thank you so much. Anybody can click a button through Zillow or Redfin now if they, want to see a house. But I think there's a growing number of people who to be fair, there are a lot of people who just like the technology of that and don't really care who's on the other side of that button. But there's a lot of people who want to have a conversation first. They want to know that they're being attended to personally. That somebody is getting to know them and understand them and know what they're looking for. And that's where I think we're different from just clicking a button and getting whoever you get assigned to you. I'm actually trying to find the right fit for you.
Very cool.
Well, I hope you bring it to LA so that,
I have people in LA. If anybody in LA is watching this and you need an agent, reach out to me. Go to TheBuyersAgents.com, fill out the 6-question little questionnaire, and I'll set something up with you.
All right. Well, this has been The Real Estate Equation. I'm Ian Meredith. I'm Home Inspections that matter for people who care. 818-298-3405.
And I'm Liz Buchman with the Buchman team at Guild Mortgage. You can reach me at 818-405-0809. Our service is the difference. And thanks for watching.
All right. Click and subscribe.